Welcome back to another episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother? In this alternate Naruto universe, one small twist changes everything. What if Naruto wasn't alone? What if he grew up with someone stronger, smarter, and born to rewrite destiny itself? Today, we dive deeper into the story of Kaito Uzumaki, Naruto's powerful older brother whose existence shakes the entire Shinobi world. New alliances form, new enemies rise, and the future of Konoha may never be the same again. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because this episode is about to change everything. After a refreshing shower, Kaito emerged from his room, adjusting the sleeves of his shirt as he made his way down the hallway toward the kitchen. Entering the kitchen, he was greeted by the inviting aroma of breakfast. His mother, Kushina, was bustling about in her usual attire, a green apron tied snugly around her waist. Her long red hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and she was humming softly as she plated his meal, a warm smile gracing her face. Seated at the table were Lady Tsunade and Shizune, each sipping from a steaming cup of tea. Naruto and Karen had already left for the academy, leaving the adults and Kaito. "Good morning, Mom," Kaito greeted, leaning in to kiss Kushina on the cheek. "Good morning, Kai-kun," she replied cheerfully. "Your breakfast is ready. It's getting cold." He took a seat at the table, nodding politely to their guests. "Good morning, Lady Tsunade, Shizune-san." Shizune offered a friendly smile. "Good morning, Kaito." Tsunade smirked. "Morning, brat." Kaito chuckled. As he began eating, he mentioned, "Oh, by the way, Itachi came by this morning. He said the Uchiha-clan has agreed to our terms and will be supporting you, Lady Tsunade." Tsunade raised an eyebrow, a hint of surprise in her eyes. That was quicker than expected. Did he mention which option they chose? He nodded, swallowing a mouthful of food. "They've opted for the position of Shadow Cage." Shizune looked thoughtful. "That makes 4 of the major clans now supporting Lady Tsunade. Since Shikaku-san confirmed that the Nara, Akamicha, and Yamanaka clans are on board, that leaves us with the Hyuga, Inuzuka, Aburame, and the other minor clans." Kushina chimed in, "I'm friends with Tsume Inuzuka, the head of the Inuzuka clan. I can ask her to come by later today so you can talk to her." Tsunade nodded appreciatively. "That would be helpful, Kushina." She glanced at the clock on the wall. "What time is our meeting with the Hyuga clan?" Kaito checked the clock and said, "In about an hour. We should get going soon." He finished his breakfast and created a shadow clone to assist Kushina with the dishes. Kushina smiled. "Thank you, Kai-kun." After tidying up, Kaito and the real Kushina left the house and made their way to the Hyuga compound. The streets were filled with villagers going about their daily routines, the hum of chatter and activity filling the air. Upon arriving at the grand gates of the Hyuga compound, Kaito greeted the guards with a friendly wave. "Good morning." Kushina offered them a warm smile. The guards recognized them and promptly allowed them entry. They walked through the meticulously maintained grounds, the elegance of the Hyuga estate evident in every detail. Soon, they arrived at the clan head's residence. At the entrance, they were greeted by Hotaru and Hitomi Hyuga. Hotaru's eyes lit up upon seeing them. "Kai-kun. Lady Kushina. Welcome." Hitomi embraced Kushina warmly. "It's so good to see you." Kushina returned the hug, albeit with a hint of awkwardness. "You too, Hitomi. How have you been?" Hitomi noticed the slight hesitation but decided not to comment. "We've been well. Please, come in. Father is expecting you." Hotaru added, "I'll show you to his study." "Thank you," Kaito said, following her lead. As they walked, Hitomi called after them, "I'll bring some refreshments." Kushina and Kaito exchanged a quick glance. There was an unspoken understanding between them. Upon reaching Hayashi's study, Hotaru gestured towards the door. "He's inside. I'll go help Mother with the tea." Kaito nodded. "Thanks, Hotaru." Entering the study, they found Hayashi seated behind a low desk, his posture impeccable. Kushina-san, Kaito-san, he greeted them. Please, have a seat. Kaito bowed slightly. Thank you for seeing us, Hayashisa-sama. Kushina offered a polite bow as well. Yes, thank you for meeting us, Hayashi-san. Hayashi inclined his head. There's no problem with it. Moments later, Hitomi and Hotaru entered, carrying trays laden with tea and snacks. They set them down gracefully, pouring cups for everyone. Would it be all right if we stayed? Hitomi asked, a hint of curiosity in her voice. Kushina glanced at Kaito, who gave a subtle nod. She smiled at Hitomi. Of course. We wouldn't mind you joining us, Hitomi-san. Hitomi raised an eyebrow hearing Kushina use the san to address her. Hayashi observed the exchange, his eyes narrowing slightly. Something seemed amiss. Before the conversation could continue, Kaito spoke up. Hayashi-sama, if it's all right with you, I'd like to erect a privacy barrier. Hayashi's eyebrow arched in surprise. Is that necessary? Kaito nodded earnestly. Given the sensitive nature of what we are about to discuss, I believe it is. After a brief pause, Hayashi acquiesced. Very well. Proceed. Kaito placed his palm on the floor, and intricate kanji spread out across the room, glowing softly before settling into a dormant state. As the privacy seal activated, Kushina's form puffed into a white smoke. When it cleared, Tsunade sat in her place, a sly grin on her face. Much better, she remarked, taking a sip of tea. Her eyes gleamed with amusement at the shocked expressions before her. Hitomi gasped softly. Lady Tsunade. Hayashi's eyes widened at the sight of Tsunade, then narrowed as he turned to Kaito, silently demanding an explanation. Kaito bowed his head slightly. I'm sorry for deceiving you, Hayashi-sama, Lady Hitomi. We needed to keep Lady Tsunade's presence in the village a secret for now. I asked Hotaru to keep it secret. Hotaru nodded, bowing deeply to her father. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. Hayashi took a deep breath, regaining his composure. Very well. I trust there is a significant reason for this. Tsunade nodded. Indeed, there is, she said, placing her cup on the table. Kaito continued, we've come to ask for the Hyuga clan's support in electing Lady Tsunade as the next Hokage. Hitomi looked surprised, casting a glance at Hotaru. That's quite a bold proposition, Hayashi said, taking a sip of his tea. He noticed that his daughter was not surprised by the request, which meant she was already aware of it. Please, hear us out, Kaito urged. He explained the situation, how the third Hokage hadn't officially been re-elected after the fourth's death, how he hadn't been seeking a successor, and how his administration was contributing to the village's current problems. If we don't act, it could lead to civil war within Konoha, or worse, the Uchiha clan might face genocide at the Hokage's orders. Hayashi's expression grew serious. That's a grave accusation. It's the reality we are facing, Hayashi, Tsunade interjected firmly. We believe that appointing a new Hokage is the best solution to prevent disaster. Hayashi leaned back, considering their words. But this plan hinges on the Uchiha clan's agreement. Tsunade nodded. They have agreed to support me, along with the Nara, Akimichi, and Yamanaka clans. I asked Hotaru to keep it secret. Hotaru nodded, bowing deeply to her father. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. Hayashi took a deep breath, regaining his composure. Very well. I trust there is a significant reason for this. Tsunade nodded. Indeed, there is, she said, placing her cup on the table. Kaito continued, we've come to ask for the Hyuga clan's support in electing Lady Tsunade as the next Hokage. Hitomi looked surprised, casting a glance at Hotaru. That's quite a bold proposition, Hayashi said, taking a sip of his tea. He noticed that his daughter was not surprised by the request, which meant she was already aware of it. Please, hear us out, Kaito urged. We are hoping the Hyuga clan will join us. Hotaru leaned forward and pleaded with her father. Father, this is the best path to keep the village peaceful. Hitomi placed a gentle hand on Hayashi's arm. Hayashi closed his eyes, deep in thought. The room remained silent as everyone awaited his response. After a few moments, he opened his eyes and nodded. Very well. The Hyuga clan will support Lady Tsunade. He continued, we've had our own disagreements with the third Hokage's administration, and a new Hokage would bring much-needed change. He glanced at Kaito. And, truth be told, a significant part of my decision is influenced by you, Kaito. This is our way of repaying you for all you've done for my family. Kaito smiled sheepishly, scratching the back of his head. Thank you, Hayashi-sama, he said sincerely. Before anyone could react, Hotaru let out an excited squeal and threw her arms around Kaito, causing them both to tumble backward. Kaito blinked in surprise, his cheeks flushing slightly. Hotaru-chan. Hitomi's eyes sparkled with amusement. She discreetly pulled out a small camera and snapped a photo of the two, capturing the moment. Tsunade chuckled, shaking her head. Kids these days, she muttered fondly. Hayashi cleared his throat loudly, his stern gaze fixed on his daughter. Hotaru. Realizing herself, Hotaru quickly released Kaito, her face turning a shade of pink that rivaled her eyes. Sorry, I got a bit carried away. Kaito sat up, smoothing out his clothes. He glanced at Hitomi and noticed the camera in her hand. Where did she get that? He thought. Later that afternoon, Kaito sat in the living room of the Uzumaki residence, a steaming cup of tea in his hand. The afternoon sun cast warm rays through the windows, illuminating the room in a golden hue. Across from him, Tsunade sipped sake from a small cup and let out a contented sigh. Well, that went smoother than I expected. Now we only have the Inuzuka and Aburame clans left among the major clans. Kaito nodded thoughtfully. Sensei, have you approached the Aburame clan yet? Shikaku Nara, who had joined them, leaned back in his chair. I have. Shibi Aburame agreed to meet with me tomorrow. He accepted a cup of tea from Kushina, who had just entered the room. Convincing him should be manageable. Word is that Danzo has been trying to recruit his son into Root. Kaito closed his eyes, thinking, if I remember correctly, Shino's friend was recruited into Root. Kushina frowned, concern evident in her eyes. Isn't his son around Naruto's age? They're in the same class if I recall correctly. Shikaku nodded gravely. Yes. And that's not all. A couple of months ago, Inoichi reported that a child from the Yamanaka clan went missing. We searched but found nothing. I suspect Danzo is behind it. Tsunade set her cup down with a sharp clink. That bastard, she muttered angrily. She locked eyes with Kaito. Can you find out where the children are being held? Kaito nodded, thinking to himself, that should be that kid's partner. I think they might be in one of the Root training bases. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Kushina stood up. That must be Tsume. I'll get it. Just then, Kushina greeted Tsume Inuzuka at the door. Tsume's wild brown hair and fierce demeanor were unmistakable. A large canine companion trotted beside her. Hey there. Tsume greeted loudly. You said you wanted to see me. Kushina hugged her and welcomed her in with a smile on her face. Tsume, thank you for coming. She led her to the living room. Tsume's eyes widened slightly. Well, I'll be damned. Lady Tsunade? Now this is a surprise. Tsume's eyes widened slightly. Well, I'll be damned. Lady Tsunade? Now this is a surprise. Tsunade smirked, setting her sake cup down. It's good to see you too, Tsume. I'm afraid I don't have time for pleasantries. We need to talk business. Shikaku nodded, leaning forward. We've come to ask for the Inuzuka clan's support in electing Lady Tsunade as the 5th Hokage. Tsume folded her arms, her large canine companion, Kuromaru, growling softly beside her. HMPH, getting straight to the point, are we? Why should I back you, Tsunade? What's in it for the Inuzuka clan? A new administration, for one, Shikaku said calmly. One that isn't influenced by the 3rd Hokage's old guard, and certainly one that won't tolerate Danzo's actions. Tsunade's expression hardened. I understand you've had dealings with Danzo's root recently, Tsume. Children going missing, attempts to recruit them. Tsume slammed her hand on the armrest of the chair. That damn shadow. He tried to lure my Kiba with his lies. If he ever comes near my pup again, I'll tear him apart myself. Kaito interjected, his voice firm. Tsume-sama, we know Danzo is kidnapping children from the clans, including one from the Yamanaka clan and another whose identity we are still confirming. He's twisting them into emotionless weapons. Electing Lady Tsunade is the first step in dismantling Danzo's influence and ensuring the safety of all our children. Tsume looked at him intently, then turned back to Tsunade. And you, the legendary Sannin, are willing to take on that responsibility? I am, Tsunade stated, meeting her gaze. And if you support me, the Inuzuka clan will have a voice in the new administration, far more influence than we've had under the current system. Your clan is fiercely loyal and strong, and those are qualities I intend to utilize fully for the village, not confined to a police force. Tsume considered this, then let out a sharp laugh. HMPH. Fair enough. I've always respected your strength, Tsunade. A swirling ball of chakra had formed in his palm, emitting a high-pitched screeching sound as he infused it with wind nature. The air around them seemed to ripple from the sheer energy. Kaito shrugged nonchalantly. Believe me or not, that's the truth. You can ask Sensei if you want. He let the Rasengan dissipate, the chakra fading into nothingness. Tsunade studied him for a long moment before shifting her stance. What's the situation in the village? She asked seriously. I need to know what's happening. Kaito glanced at Itachi. I think it's better if Itachi fills you in on the current situation. Itachi agreed, his expression turning grave. The Uchiha clan is preparing for a coup d'etat. They've already started making moves, and the third Hokage hasn't made any effort to persuade them otherwise. Even though Shisui has been spying for him for quite some time now, nothing has changed. Tsunade let out another snort, this time laced with bitterness. That old man wants to wait until the last minute and then claim he couldn't do anything, she said sharply. It would give him the perfect excuse to massacre the Uchiha and pin the blame on someone else, just like he did with the Senju clan. Itachi's eyes widened upon hearing Tsunade's words. Noticing his reaction, Tsunade turned to Kaito. You haven't told him about what happened to the Senju clan, have you? She asked, seeing his surprise. Kaito shook his head. This is the first time we've met in a long while, he explained. Itachi has been busy, and I didn't really have an opportunity to tell him yet. Tsunade took a deep breath. Well, long story short, the Senju clan didn't agree with the third Hokage when he started the war. So he and his advisors had them systematically killed by sending them to the front lines. They even kidnapped and experimented on the children to try and awaken the Mokuton of the first Hokage, she said, her voice dripping with barely contained anger. Your friend here, she gestured toward Kaito, found proof in one of the root bases. The cup in her hand cracked under the pressure of her grip. Turning back to Kaito, Tsunade asked, So who is going to be the next Hokage? I assume since I rejected the position, you've selected someone else for the role. Kaito sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping slightly. You were the best option for the position, he admitted. There weren't any other candidates other than you. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. So you just gave up on the plan, she challenged. Surely there are others who can be Hokage. Itachi, too, looked at Kaito curiously. He hadn't heard anything about a new plan since Tsunade had declined. Kaito shook his head. Without someone strong as the Hokage, the other villagers won't hesitate to start the next war, he explained. Making anyone other than you or Fugaku-sama Hokage would only give the image that Konoha is weak with a weak leader. With you declining and Fugaku-sama not an option due to the Uchiha clan's reputation in the village right now. He trailed off, and Tsunade's eyes narrowed. So what are you suggesting? She asked. Kaito looked up, determination shining in his eyes. The only solution is to get rid of the third Hokage and his advisors, he stated firmly. Tsunade stared at him incredulously. You're planning on taking out the old man? She asked. It prevents them from speaking about anything that happened here. Shikaku sighed again, rubbing his face with his hand. Why am I not surprised you do something like that? Tsunade looked at Kaito appreciatively. How long will this seal last? Until I release it, Kaito replied casually. Which I plan to do once you're officially named the 5th Hokage. Better safe than sorry, why no? Tsunade nodded approvingly. Good thinking, brat. Kaito pushed himself off the tree and walked over. Well, now that we have the support we need, when are we going to meet the daimyo? Kakashi informed me that the Hokage would be leaving on a diplomatic mission to the Land of Iron. This should be our best chance, why no? Shikaku sighed. I know. Do you think you can handle Danzo and the 2 others? Itachi opened his eyes and nodded slowly. I can, he affirmed, but I would need intel on them. Tsunade looked between the 2 young men, disbelief written on her face. Are you too crazy? She exclaimed. Do you think that 2 snot-nosed brats like you can assassinate the Hokage and his advisors? Do you really think the 2 of you can pull it off? What if you fail? What about your mother? Have you thought about that? Kaito met her gaze steadily. We won't fail, he said firmly. We can't fail. I thought you had a plan for that. Kaito rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and said, Yeah, about that, I was mostly relying on you for the daimyo part since, you know, you're a sannin and the granddaughter of the 1st Hokage, why no? He laughed nervously, scratching the back of his head. Shikaku gave Kaito an exasperated look and muttered, troublesome. Tsunade smirked and ruffled his hair. It's okay, brat. Leave it to me. The daimyo owes me for saving his life a few years back. Trust me, getting an audience won't be an issue. Shikaku clapped his hands together. Well, then it's settled. Making the 3rd Hokage and his advisors disappear is the best solution with the least casualties. The room fell silent as his words hung heavily in the air. Tsunade studied Kaito's face, searching for any sign of doubt but found none. Itachi's expression was equally resolute. Finally, Tsunade sighed. You 2 are serious about this, she murmured. Shizune looked at both of them as if they were insane. You can't be serious, she interjected. Kaito shrugged, a hint of impatience in his posture. We can't just wait for the adults to do something when we know they won't do anything, he said pointedly, looking directly at Tsunade. Tsunade sat back, considering his words. Then if you manage to pull this off, who is going to be the 5th Hokage? She asked. Kaito replied without hesitation. Fugaku Uchiha is the best candidate. Without the 3rd or the 3 idiots, it would be easier getting him elected as Hokage with Sensei's support. Tsunade looked deep in thought, her gaze fixed on the cracked cup in her hand. She bit her lip, weighing the options. Silence filled the room, tension thick in the air. Finally, Kaito stood up. Well, we should get going, he announced. Mom would be worried sick. I didn't tell her where I was going. Itachi also stood up, sensing the conversation had reached a stalemate. Kaito hesitated for a moment. Is it okay if she sway? He began, but was cut off when Tsunade spoke up. I will do it, she declared. Both Kaito paused and looked at Tsunade in surprise. Shizune, now standing beside Tsunade, looked at her with wide eyes. Lady Tsunade, she whispered. Kaito blinked, confusion evident on his face. Her? What? He asked. Tsunade looked up at Kaito, her eyes blazing with determination. I'll accept the position of 5th Hokage, she stated firmly. Kaito stared at her, momentarily speechless. This was the last thing he expected to hear. After gathering his thoughts, he finally asked, Why? She raised an eyebrow, a hint of confusion crossing her face. What do you mean, why? The Bratz team is taking a mission to the capital. Where are Shizune-san and my shadow clone? Kaito asked, taking another cookie. He looked around for his clone, sensing the other clone guarding the house but not the one that was with his mother. Kushina replied after taking a sip of her tea. Oh, Shizune wanted to get some herbs, so Clone-kun took her. They only left a few minutes ago. Just then, a sudden crash echoed from deeper within the house, followed by a muffled groan. Kaito stood up. That came from Shisue's room. Without another word, he dashed down the hallway. He slid open the door to find Shisui Uchiha sprawled on the floor beside the bed, struggling to push himself up. His face was pale, and beads of sweat dotted his forehead. Shisui! Kaito exclaimed, moving over to help him. You shouldn't be out of bed. You're still injured. Shisui looked up at him with his one good eye, confusion clouding his gaze. Kaito? Where am I? How am I alive? The last thing I remember is… Kaito guided him back onto the bed. Easy there. You're safe. You're in my house. Tsunade entered the room. Move aside, brat. Kaito stepped back, allowing her to kneel beside Shisui. Shisue's eyes widened upon recognizing her. Lady Tsunade? I must be dreaming. Tsunade placed a glowing hand on his forehead, her chakra soothing his agitation. No dream, kid. You've been in a coma for the past week. You need to rest. As Shisui drank, Tsunade continued her examination. Your recovery is progressing well, but there's still residual damage from the poison. It'll take time, but you'll be back to full strength eventually. Shisui nodded weakly. Can I have some water, please? Kushina appeared at the doorway, a glass of water in hand. She approached his side, helping him take small sips. Here you go. Slowly now. Shisui finished drinking and looked at Kushina. Thank you, he said softly. His gaze shifted between them. But how did I get here? I remember falling off a cliff. Kaito pulled up a chair beside the bed. Well, that's a long story. I was nearby when it happened and saved you from falling into the river. Then Itachi and I brought you to Lady Tsunade. She and her apprentice saved your life. It's not that long, but you know, he ended the explanation with a shrug. Shisue's brow furrowed. Itachi, is he okay? And what about the clan? Don't worry, Kaito assured him. Only Fugaku-sama knows about your condition. The rest of your clan believes you're, well, gone. It's safer that way for now. Shisue's expression darkened. Danzo. Kaito nodded. He exchanged a glance with Tsunade before continuing. We are handling it. Lady Tsunade has agreed to become the 5th Hokage. We've already secured the support of the major clans, and the Uchiha have also agreed to support her. Things are changing. Relief washed over Shisue's features. That's good to hear. He smiled weakly. Tsunade reached into her bag and pulled out a small vial. Here, drink this. It's medicine to help purge the remaining poison from your system. She handed the vial to him, and he grimaced at the bitter taste but drank it without complaint. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. She patted his shoulder gently. Get some rest. We'll check on you later. Shisui fell back into sleep. As they left the room, Kaito said, Well, I should go and let Hotaru know about the mission. I'll be back later, Mom. Sighing, he ran a hand through his hair. The sun was setting over Konoha as the day wound down. In the Hokage Tower, many people were gathering in the meeting hall. The jonin, clan heads, and department heads filled the room with chatter as they awaited the arrival of the elders and the Hokage. Shikaku sat at the Nara clan's designated seat with his arms crossed, leaning on his chair. He was quietly waiting for everyone to arrive. The other clan heads sat in their designated spots. Fugaku had his eyes closed and arms crossed as he waited for the meeting to begin. Hayashi, Tsume, Choza, and Inoichi all knew what the meeting was about and maintained stoic faces. All the major department heads and prominent jonin who had been informed were present. A while later, the 3rd Hokage and the Elder Council took their seats. One of the Kaito clones nearby raised a hand, signaling to Naruto. Eyes here, Naruto. Focus. Do it again. Naruto groaned, his shoulders slumping as he dragged his gaze back to the clone. How many times do I have to keep doing this? My chakra's gonna run dry at this rate. Kaito and Shikaku suddenly appeared in the middle of the room where Tsunade and Shizune were staying. Tsunade sat leaning against the wall, gazing out at through the window. A steaming cup of tea rested in her hand, and she took a slow sip as if savoring the moment. Sensing Kaito and Shikaku, she turned to face them, her eyes sharp and unamused. "You're late," she said pointedly, her tone leaving little room for excuses. Kaito rubbed the back of his head sheepishly, a nervous grin spreading across his face. "Sorry we are late, Lady Tsunade," he apologized. Shikaku bowed slightly in greeting. "Lady Tsunade," he acknowledged with a nod. "In all fairness, you didn't really give me a heads up earlier. I had to take care of some pressing matters before coming." Tsunade raised an eyebrow but gestured for them to sit opposite her at the low wooden table. "Fine. Let's get on with it," she said, taking another sip of her tea. The sound of footsteps approached, and Shizune emerged from one of the adjoining rooms, a gentle smile on her face. "Good to see you again, Shikaku-san," she said. Homura nodded, agreeing with her. "You can't select a Hokage without the approval of the current Hokage and the Council of Elders." Shikaku noticed that Danzo was unusually calm and hadn't voiced his opinion. He thought, "That's strange, he's too calm. I have to keep an eye on him." Shikaku remained unflustered. After the fourth sacrificed himself to seal the Ninetales, Lord Third resumed his duties as an interim Hokage until a successor was found. Given how occupied we've been with rebuilding the village, perhaps the formal appointment slipped his mind. Therefore, we took it upon ourselves to find a suitable candidate for the fifth Hokage. Given the current political climate the village is currently facing, we believe appointing the fifth Hokage would help alleviate the underlying issues and help mend old wounds. Hiruzen calmly smoked his pipe, his gaze shifting to Fugaku when Shikaku mentioned the village's political climate. Koharu's eyes flashed with anger. "Even so, acting without the approval of the acting Hokage is treasonous. We must vet and approve any candidate for the position." Before Shikaku could respond, Fugaku Uchiha stood. "The approval of the elders is not required," he stated. "All the major clans, including the Uchiha," he emphasized the word Uchiha, along with the daimyo, have endorsed the selection and agreed. Koharu turned to Fugaku, incredulous. "Fugaku, you should know better. This isn't just about formalities, it's about the very fabric of our governance. Bypassing the established order sets a dangerous precedent. Have you thought about the consequences?" Hiruzen puffed out a cloud of smoke and asked, "Who has been chosen as the fifth Hokage?" The large double doors swung open, and Tsunade entered the room with confident strides. "He's jeopardizing the entire village." Shikaku rubbed his chin thoughtfully, his expression growing more serious by the moment. "So the Uchiha clan has decided on a coup, then?" he asked, though it seemed he already suspected as much. Shikaku closed his eyes and said, "Then we don't have much time to waste." He looked directly at Tsunade. Tsunade nodded, mirroring his intensity. "Exactly. That's why you're both here, to hammer out a concrete plan. I presume you've been thinking about our next steps." Shikaku nodded thoughtfully. "We'll need to start with the Uchiha clan. If they're the ones pushing hardest, they'll also need to be the first to understand our intentions." Kaito chimed in, eager to add what he'd recently learned. "Speaking of which, Itachi mentioned to me this morning that he's spoken with his father. They've arranged a meeting for tomorrow." A hint of relief softened Shikaku's expression as he stroked his chin thoughtfully. "Good. That should simplify things, at least on that front. Convincing Fugaku is one thing, but getting the rest of the clan on board." He trailed off. Tsunade leaned forward, her brows knit in focus. "And what about the rest of the village? Having the Uchiha's support alone isn't going to cut it, not when the stakes are this high." Shikaku nodded in agreement. "I've been subtly probing around with the heads of the other clans. Most are, let's say, discontented with the village's current state of management. especially with the rumors swirling around lately. He cast a sidelong glance at Kaito. Kaito raised his hands in mock innocence, flashing a playful grin. What? I haven't said anything. Shikaku rolled his eyes but continued. Anyway, I'm confident that if you're our candidate, Lady Tsunade, the other clans would rally around you. You have their respect. That said, we won't be reaching out to certain families, specifically, Sarutobi, Shimura, Utatane, and Mitakado clans, and their allies. Tsunade pursed her lips, deep in thought. So that leaves us with the daimyo and the village's jonin to sway. Exactly, Shikaku agreed, his tone serious. The jonin are already leaning in favor of you stepping up as the 5th Hokage. Most of them have seen enough conflict and mismanagement under the current leadership and would welcome the change. He hesitated. But the daimyo, well, that's a different matter. We should wait to approach him until we have the majority of the village's clans on board. His approval is vital, but he'll only be swayed by solid backing from within. Tsunade nodded in understanding, a small smile tugging at her lips as a memory surfaced. We'll need to go and meet with the daimyo personally, then. He and I have always had a decent rapport. I want both of you with me for that meeting. Kaito nodded thoughtfully as he remembered something important. We may need to move forward with our plan as soon as we have the daimyo's approval. I just remembered that one of the 3rd Hokage's sons is part of the 12 Guardian Ninja. You're talking about Asuma, right? Shikaku asked. Kaito nodded. Exactly. The security measures were in place for valid reasons. Agitated, Koharu added, you can't make these changes unilaterally. The implications could affect the entire village's security. Hiruzen sat calmly, watching the proceedings while puffing on his pipe. Tsunade ignored them and continued. Uchiha clan members will be free to join any of Konoha's departments. Fugaku, please provide me with a list of suitable candidates to be trained as medic nin. She continued, furthermore, I will be creating a new position in the village. This position will be named Shadow Hokage, Kage no Kage. Their role will be to serve as the right hand of the Hokage and will report directly and only to the Hokage. But will likely need to speak directly with the Aburame, Inuzuka, and Hyuga clans. Kaito nodded, already considering who could be their allies. I'm confident the Hyuga clan will be on our side, especially with Hotaru helping us, he said. She's already said that she would help us talk to her father on this matter. Shikaku nodded in agreement. Hayashi Hyuga isn't particularly fond of the current administration, he noted. Especially after the incident with Hotaru a few years ago. Tsunade frowned, her curiosity piqued. What incident? She asked, looking between the two. And isn't Hotaru the Hyuga girl that came with you? Shikaku glanced at Kaito before answering. Yes, that's her, he confirmed. A few years ago, when they were 8. There was an incident involving the Hyuga clan and the Hidden Cloud Village. If he catches wind of our plans, there's a chance he might feel compelled to inform the Hokage. Shikaku sighed, considering the implications. That's a valid concern. Asuma is loyal to the village first and foremost. We'll have to be cautious and move discreetly. Tsunade agreed, her expression firm. Then we need to act quickly. Once we've secured support from the clans, we'll take our proposal to the daimyo without delay. Shikaku leaned back thoughtfully, hands folded as he outlined the next steps. I can work on convincing the Yamanaka and Akimichi clans, he said. The Nara clan is close with both of them, so we have an advantage there. The Kumo envoy sent to sign a peace treaty attempted to kidnap Hotaru, the Hyuga clan heiress. Kaito here was the one who saved her and captured the Kumo ambassador red-handed, and during the incident, Kaito also discovered that Root was behind the kidnapping. Tsunade's eyes widened. They attempted to kidnap the Hyuga clan's heiress? That's bold, she remarked. Shikaku nodded grimly. It almost escalated to war. The Hidden Cloud demanded Hayashi's life, accusing the Hyuga clan of making false allegations. But Kaito's quick actions saved us from a diplomatic disaster. With the Kumo ambassador captured alive, we had undeniable proof of their intentions. Kaito added bitterly, unfortunately, the Hokage brushed off Danzo's involvement entirely. He denied any role from root and didn't take action. That didn't go over well with the Hyuga clan, especially with Hayashisama. Shikaku nodded. Given that history, I think we can expect support from the Hyuga clan head, he said. Tsunade gave a slight nod. Then we have the Hyuga heir's support for the plan. Shikaku glanced at Kaito, smirking slightly. More accurately, he has their support, he corrected, gesturing toward Kaito. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, eyeing Kaito with mild amusement. Is that so? She asked, a playful glint in her eyes. Kaito rubbed the back of his neck, a bit flustered. Hotaru and I have been friends for a long time, he said. Tsunade smirked knowingly. Friends, huh? She teased before turning back to business. What about the Aburame and Inuzuka clan? Kaito brightened. Mom is close friends with their clan head, he explained. I'm sure she could help us get a meeting with her. That would leave only the Aburame clan, Shikaku nodded. Once we have the support of the major clans, the smaller, allied clans should follow. Mom is close friends with their clan head, Kaito explained. I'm sure she could help us get a meeting with her. That would leave only the Aburame clan, Shikaku nodded. Once we have the support of the major clans, the smaller, allied clans should follow. Kaito appeared in the living room using the Hiraishin, with Tsunade and Shizune holding onto his shoulders. That didn't go over well with the Hyuga clan, especially with Hayashisama. Shikaku nodded. Given that history, I think we can expect support from the Hyuga clan head, he said. Tsunade gave a slight nod. Then we have the Hyuga heir's support for the plan. Shikaku glanced at Kaito, smirking slightly. More accurately, he has their support, he corrected, gesturing toward Kaito. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, eyeing Kaito with mild amusement. Is that so? She asked, a playful glint in her eyes. Kaito rubbed the back of his neck, a bit flustered. Hotaru and I have been friends for a long time, he said. As they read, expressions of shock and anger spread across their faces. These documents reveal Konoha's previous higher-ups' involvement in heinous acts, Tsunade stated. Such as Danzo's collaboration with Orochimaru, supplying children for his twisted experiments. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. Shibi Aburame adjusted his glasses. So those rumors were true, he murmured. Inoichi Yamanaka looked stricken. This is unbelievable. Tsume Inuzuka growled low in her throat. Is this true? She demanded, glaring at the elders and former Hokage. Choza Akimicha looked ill. I can't believe what I'm reading. Shikaku shook his head sadly. The evidence is too detailed to be fabricated. Tsunade pressed on. Danzo manipulated mission files to eliminate Uchiha clan members to harvest their Sharingan eyes. Worse still, Hiruzen knew about these actions and chose to do nothing. Hayashi Hyuga clenched his fists. This goes deep. Tsunade's voice wavered slightly as she continued. They also orchestrated the downfall of the Uzumaki clan during the Second Shinobi War, selling them out to enemy forces. Inoichi Yamanaka's eyes were wide. How could this happen under our noses? And they discredited Sakumo Hatake, the White Fang, Tsunade added. Because the public favored him as the fourth Hokage, Danzo leaked classified information to tarnish his reputation. Kakashi Hatake, who was watching from the shadow among the other ANBU, lowered his head. Kaito had shown him the file, but it was still hard for him to process. It feels peaceful. Kushina glanced over at her old friend. It's good to have you here with us. Makes the house feel even more lively. Shizune returned to the kitchen after helping settle Shisui into one of the guest rooms. She took a seat beside Tsunade, letting out a small sigh of relief. Just then, a knock echoed from the front door. I'll get it, Kaito offered, pushing his chair back. He had already sensed who it was. Walking to the door, He opened it to reveal Hotaru standing there with a bright smile. "Hey there, Hotaru-chan." He greeted her warmly, waving. "Come in. We are just about to have lunch." Hotaru beamed back at him. "Thanks, Kai-kun. I hope I'm not intruding." He shook his head, dismissing her concern with a wave of his hand. "Not at all. Mom loves having you over, why no?" As they walked back to the kitchen, Hotaru followed closely behind Kaito. Upon entering, she saw Tsunade, Shizune, and Kushina gathered around the table. "Good to see you, Lady Kushina," Hotaru said with a warm smile, moving forward to give her a hug. Kushina returned the embrace enthusiastically. "Hotaru-chan. So glad you could join us for lunch." "Thank you for having me," Hotaru replied, her cheeks flushing slightly. She then turned to Tsunade and gave a respectful bow. "Good to see you again, Godame-sama. Find out everything they're involved in," she ordered. "And place the old man under house arrest under heavy guard until further notice." Ibiki nodded. "Understood." He motioned for some jonin to assist. Kaito moved to the immobilized elders and Hiruzen. Placing his palm on each one, he reinforced the seals, effectively sealing off their chakra and ensuring they couldn't escape. Koharu glared at Tsunade. "You are tearing this village apart." Homura struggled against his bindings. "This is an abuse of power." Danzo remained silent as Kaito placed a hand on Danzo's chest, grinning. Danzo leaned forward and said, "Don't think you have won," before he puffed into a cloud of smoke, revealing himself to be a shadow clone. Everyone in the room stared in disbelief as Danzo's form dissipated into a puff of smoke. It was just a shadow clone. He'd been one step ahead of them all along. Tsunade's eyes narrowed, a fierce scowl spreading across her face. "That old bastard," she snarled, her fists clenching so tightly that she smashed the table in front of her to pieces. "Lock down the village. He's not getting away on my watch," she ordered everyone in the room. Shikaku Nara sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "Troublesome," he muttered under his breath. Turning to the assembled jonin, he issued quick orders. "Spread out and search every corner of the village. Let's track him down." Hiruzen sighed and hung his head, knowing this was his doing, that he'd given Danzo too much leeway. The jonin nodded in unison before disappearing in body flickers. Tsunade turned her fiery gaze to Ibiki Marino. "Ibiki, take the old man and the other two into maximum security. I don't want any more surprises." Ibiki gave a sharp nod. "Understood, Lady Hokage." He motioned for his subordinates to secure the former Hokage and the elders, ensuring they were properly detained as they were escorted out of the room. "Assign all available ANBU to hunt Danzo down," Tsunade continued, her voice leaving no room for argument. "I want every resource we've got dedicated to finding him." Another squad of ANBU left swiftly after her orders. Fugaku stepped forward. "Allow the Uchiha clan to help with the search, Lady Hokage," he offered. Tsunade nodded to him. "Your assistance is appreciated." Meanwhile, Kaito stood with his eyes closed, extending his mind's eye of Kagura throughout the village. "I assume you'll be attending the meeting with your father." Hotaru nodded thoughtfully, stirring her tea as she spoke. "I haven't told father the specifics of the meeting yet." Just then, a high-pitched, girlish shout echoed from somewhere inside the house, causing everyone to jump slightly. "What was that?" Tsunade asked, her eyes narrowing as she instinctively prepared for trouble. Kaito was already on his feet. "I'll check it out," he said quickly, moving towards the source of the noise. Did someone get into the house? He wondered, adrenaline beginning to surge. He followed the sound to one of the guest rooms and pushed the door open. Anko was standing in front of a mirror. She was examining her neck intently, her oversized t-shirt slipping off one shoulder and revealing a hint of cleavage. She seemed completely absorbed, her fingers tracing the skin where the cursed seal used to be. "Oh right," Kaito thought with a mental facepalm. "I forgot she was still here." He stepped into the room cautiously. "Hey, Anko, are you okay? Why did you scream like that?" Anko spun around, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and joy. The moment she saw him, a radiant smile spread across her face. Before he could react, she lunged at him, wrapping her arms around his neck and tackling him to the ground. "Whoa!" Kaito exclaimed as he landed on his back, Anko hugging him tightly. Their mission was to capture and round up root operatives and rescue any children who had been kidnapped by Danzo's organization. Kakashi had been briefed the previous day about the operation, including the overall plan to dismantle Root. As they leaped from tree to tree, Kakashi and Itachi both felt a familiar tingling at the back of their necks, the activation of Kaito's communication seal. They halted abruptly on a thick branch, causing the rest of the ANBU squad to stop as well. "Captain, is something wrong?" one of the ANBU members inquired. Kakashi raised a hand for silence while tapping the seal on his neck. Kaito's urgent message echoed in his mind. "Kakashi, Itachi, the Uchiha clan is under attack by Root." Anko wiped her eyes, her smile never fading. "The seal, it's gone," she said breathlessly. "I'm free." Kaito blinked in surprise. "Huh? Of course, the seal is gone. Didn't I tell you I could remove it?" Kaito stood up, dusting himself off. As he did, he felt a sudden chill. Turning slowly, he saw Hotaru standing a few feet away, her Byakugan activated. She was staring at Anko intently before her gaze shifted to him. Hotaru," he began nervously. "Why do you have your Byakugan active?" She raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "Just observing," she replied cryptically. He made the cross-hand sign and called out, "Shadow Clone Jutsu," creating 15 identical copies of himself. "Spread out and take down as many Root operatives as you can. Protect the civilians." The clones nodded before body flickering in all directions. Kaito himself dashed forward, arriving just in time to intercept a sword strike aimed at a young Uchiha girl. He blocked the blade with his tanto, sparks flying upon impact. Before the Root ANBU could react, Kaito parried his blade and kicked him in the face, sending the operative flying backward. Kaito flickered behind the attacker and slashed vertically, ending him. He walked over to the girl. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I feel free." Kushina smiled warmly. "That's wonderful news. Come on, let's get you something to eat. You've been in a coma for the last few days. You must be starving." Anko wiped her eyes, a sheepish grin forming as her stomach grumbled loudly. "I guess I could eat." Just then, Tsunade, who had been listening nearby, approached them with a curious expression. "Wait a minute," she said. "What seal? And why were you in a coma?" Anko turned and was startled to see Tsunade standing there. "Lady Tsunade," she exclaimed, eyes wide in surprise. Kaito stepped forward to explain. "It's a cursed seal that Orochimaru placed on her," he said matter-of-factly. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. "Orochimaru placed a cursed seal on you?" She knelt down beside Anko, her hand glowing with medical chakra as she performed a diagnostic with the mystic palm jutsu. "Hold still for a moment." As Tsunade assessed Anko's condition, Kaito continued, "Anko was Orochimaru's student. When he defected from the village, he experimented on her with his cursed seal." Tsunade listened intently, her face serious. After a moment, she nodded. "She's all right. There's no trace of foreign chakra in her body," she confirmed, offering Anko a reassuring smile. Anko let out a deep sigh of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Kaito added thoughtfully, "The seal had a piece of Orochimaru's soul embedded in it. Why are ANBU attacking us? Has the village decided to finish us off?" he demanded, desperation in his voice. Kaito shook his head quickly. "No. Danzo has been convicted as a traitor. When the 5th Hokage tried to arrest him, he went rogue. These aren't ANBU under the Hokage. The village is not behind this attack. Fugaku-sama will explain everything later. For now, focus on defending your clansmen and getting them to safety. I'll continue to take down as many Root operatives as I can." The officer's eyes hardened with resolve. "Understood. Thank you." They parted ways, each heading toward the next skirmish. As Kaito moved through the compound, he couldn't help but notice the sheer number of enemies. There were close to 1,000 root shinobi assaulting the Uchiha district, a testament to Danzo's hidden resources. Despite the odds, the Uchiha clan was holding their ground. Meanwhile, Tsunade and Fugaku were racing across the rooftops, the wind whipping past them. "We need to get there faster," Tsunade urged. Fugaku activated his Sharingan, scanning ahead. "I can see the flames. They're attacking from all sides." "Curse that Danzo," Tsunade spat. He's willing to destroy the entire village to achieve his twisted goals. Back at the compound, one of Kaito's clones encountered a group of root operatives performing a combined fireball jutsu at 2 injured Uchiha police force members. Kaito made a single hand sign and called out, "Water style, water dragon jutsu." A massive serpent of water gathered from the moisture in the air, colliding against the massive fireball and dousing it before making its way toward the root operatives. From behind, another root shinobi lunged at Kaito's clone, slashing through him, only to reveal it was an afterimage. The clone reappeared behind the operative and slashed through him vertically. Elsewhere, an elderly Uchiha woman and her young grandson were returning home after a lovely outing when they came across a root ANBU. The woman pushed her grandson behind her as the root operative lunged forward, slicing at them. But before his blade could make contact, he was cut down. She looked up to see Itachi standing there. "Bless you, young man," she said gratefully. Itachi turned to her and nodded. "Please stay inside. Don't come out until someone comes looking for you," he advised before body flickering away. Kakashi ran through the streets of the Uchiha clan, cutting down root shinobi as he encountered them. His tanto crackled with lightning as he channeled his lightning chakra into it. Cutting down another root shinobi, Kakashi looked up to see a squad of root operatives being engulfed by a massive fireball jutsu. He also watched as a root shinobi was sent flying by a punch that left him lying in a crater upon impact. Tsunade and Fugaku landed on top of a building, observing the destruction caused by Danzo. Just then, a Uchiha Jonin landed in front of them. "Fugaku-sama, I'm glad you're here. We need your assistance," he said. Kakashi landed beside them, making the Uchiha Jonin tense and ready to attack, but Fugaku stopped him. "Tagama, he's on our side," Fugaku assured him. The now-named Tagama relaxed his shoulders a bit. Looking at Kakashi, Tsunade asked, "Report, Kakashi." Kakashi nodded. According to Kaito, the Uchiha clan is being attacked from all sides. He estimates at least 1,000 root operatives. My squad is helping Kaito's clones take them down. Tagama nodded. "We're being outnumbered. That Uzumaki kid is helping us push them back." Fugaku turned to Tagama. "Haven't the police force arrived yet?" Tagama shook his head. "No, we haven't received any backup. They must have been attacked as well." Tsunade nodded. "Fugaku, take charge and organize the counteroffensive. Kakashi, coordinate the ANBU with Fugaku. Ask all ANBU to remove their masks to help distinguish us from them. Capture some, but don't let any of them escape." Fugaku, Kakashi, and Tagama nodded. "Understood, Lady Hokage," they said before body flickering away. Tsunade bit her thumb, drawing blood, and made a few hand signs. "Summoning jutsu," she called out, slamming her palm on the ground. A large puff of smoke appeared and then dissipated, revealing a massive slug. "Lady Tsunade," it said. "No time to catch up, Katsuyu," Tsunade quickly ordered. "I need you to divide up and help heal the injured civilians and Uchiha clan members." "Understood," Katsuyu replied before splitting into thousands of little slugs, slithering away to help heal people. Tsunade sat down cross-legged on the building just as Shikaku arrived with a large squad of ANBU and Hyuga clan members. Tsunade ordered, "4 of you stand guard over me while I supply Katsuyu with my chakra. The rest of you, spread out and help." They all nodded and body flickered away, while 4 formed a protective circle around Tsunade as seal markings spread around her. In a dimly lit cave, a man with long black hair stood beside a rough wooden table. He carefully placed a scroll upon it. An orange mask with black markings concealed his face, and a katana was strapped to his side. He reached over to unfasten the katana, intending to lay it on the table. Just then, something emerged behind him from the ground, but he paid it no mind and continued with his task. The masked man paused when he sensed a presence. Turning around, he saw a massive green plant rising from the ground. It opened up to reveal a human-like head. One side was black with a white eye, and the other was pale white with a yellow pupil. The white side of the plant-like being spoke in a cheerful tone. "Obito, there's some interesting news from the Hidden Leaf Village." Obito turned his full attention to the creature and asked, "Oh? And what might that be?" With the same light-hearted tone, the white side said, "The third Hokage is being overthrown as we speak." Obito raised an eyebrow behind his mask. Did the Uchiha clan finally launch their coup d'etat? Is Fugaku now the fifth Hokage? The black side of the being spoke in a serious voice. "That's just it. It wasn't the Uchiha clan. It was Lady Tsunade, and the Uchiha have given their support to her." "That's interesting," Obito mused. "So the Uchiha clan has given up on their plans for a coup. Who would have thought they'd backed Tsunade of all people to become Hokage? I didn't think she'd return after her history with the village, let alone take up the mantle of Hokage." White Zetsu chimed in. "That would be Kaito Uzumaki's doing. He somehow convinced her to come back and become Hokage. Not only that, but there are rumors he managed to outpace the Raikage." Black Zetsu added, "He's turning out to be as troublesome as his father." Obito paused. "Kaito Uzumaki? Huh? I wouldn't expect any less from Sensei's son." The black half continued, "That's not all. Lady Tsunade also exposed all of the third's wrongdoings. She's placed the former third Hokage under house arrest, and the Elder Council has been disbanded and arrested for further questioning." White Zetsu said excitedly, "And here's the best part, Danzo found out about it and has planned an attack on the Uchiha clan as a distraction so he can flee the village." Black Zetsu agreed. "Yes, this would be a great opportunity for you to gather some Sharingan." Obito nodded and strapped the katana back onto his side. "It's a shame about the Uchiha." White Zetsu suddenly announced, "The attack has started." Obito's body began to warp and was sucked into his eye as he activated Kamui. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a soft glow over the streets of the Uchiha clan's district. Obito stood on a rooftop, observing the chaos unfolding below. White Zetsu emerged beside him. "So it begins," he said, watching as the attack on the Uchiha clan commenced. The space around Obito's eye hole warped, and his body vanished into it. Inside the Uchiha police force headquarters, things were busy as usual. But unlike the norm of the past few years, there was an air of hope among them that things were going to change for the clan. An Uchiha man was talking animatedly with another man as they walked out of the police station. He threw his arm around his friend and said, "Oh, come on, cheer up, Tokuma. I didn't do it on purpose," he grinned. Tokuma shrugged off his friend's arm. "Get your hands off me, Kazuma. That's the third time this week, and you expect me to believe you?" He pushed him away, shouting, "You made me look bad in front of Izumi-chan." Kazuma laughed. "Ah, come on, man. I didn't do that on purpose." Just then, they heard an explosion. Both turned in the direction of the Uchiha clan's main district to see smoke rising into the sky. Tokuma's eyes widened. "What's happening? We have to alert the lieutenant." Suddenly, the space in front of them warped, and a portal formed in the air. A masked man materialized from it, holding a katana in his hand. Kazuma pulled out a kunai. "State your name and intentions," he demanded, holding the kunai defensively. Tokuma also drew a kunai and activated his Sharingan, preparing for a fight. "Even if we forcibly placed you as Hokage, it would divide the village and might lead to a civil war." Fugaku nodded, closing his eyes. He knew all of this already. Itachi looked at his father and said, "Father, I agree with them. That's why they've come to ask for the clan's support to elect Lady Tsunade as the fifth Hokage." Fugaku opened his eyes and met his son's gaze. I agree with your assessment of the situation, he acknowledged. But that still doesn't explain what benefits the Uchiha clan would receive by supporting Lady Tsunade. I'm glad you asked, Tsunade replied, stepping forward with a determined look. My goal as Hokage would be to mend the rifts within the village. White Zetsu emerged from the ground. The white half whistled as he looked around. You did quite a number on them, huh? Obito said, start collecting the eyes, before walking out of the building. As he stepped outside, 2 shuriken were thrown at him. They passed through him harmlessly and embedded themselves into the pillar beside him. Obito slowly turned in the direction the shuriken had come from. He saw a girl with brown hair, wearing a purple sleeveless top and brown pants. Seeing her shuriken pass through the masked man, Izumi was shocked. Knowing she couldn't fight someone that powerful, she turned to flee. But a metal chain suddenly wrapped around her body, binding her arms to her sides and pulling her back. Your clan has promising talent that shouldn't go to waste. She continued. In return, we ask that you open up the Uchiha police force to other clans and civilian ninjas. Fugaku began to say something, but Tsunade raised her hand to pause him. I know the police force was gifted to the Uchiha clan by my granduncle as a symbol of trust, she acknowledged. But you've likely noticed that it's become a double-edged sword. While it gives the clan a sense of honor, it's also become a source of disdain. Positions of authority often are. Opening up the police force would lessen that burden. Rest assured, the police force will still be under Uchiha's leadership. The only difference is that others will be allowed to join. This, combined with allowing your clan members to be part of other branches of Konoha's administration, will help them reintegrate into the village structure and feel less isolated. Shikaku nodded in agreement. The Uchiha clan will also no longer be isolated to a corner of the village. Your people will be free to live wherever they wish within Konoha. Fugaku closed his eyes, contemplating their words. I agree with your assessment of the situation and how you plan to help the clan reintegrate into the village, he said thoughtfully. But what guarantee is there that something like what happened after the Ninetales attack won't happen again? The Uchiha clan, along with the Senju clan, is one of the founding clans of Konoha. If the village could cast mistrust upon us and isolate us once, what guarantee can you give that such events won't repeat? Tsunade nodded thoughtfully. That's why we are proposing 2 options for you to consider, she began, her eyes meeting Fugaku's. The first choice is that I would officially announce an Uchiha as my successor. Alternatively, the Uchiha clan would be granted a permanent position within the Konoha government, the role that the police force should have been. Fugaku's eyes narrowed with curiosity and caution. Explain, he demanded. Shikaku stepped forward. The option is straightforward, he elaborated. Either Itachi or Shisui would become candidates for the position of 6th Hokage. Fugaku interrupted, a hint of sorrow in his voice. Shisui. I'm afraid Shisui has committed suicide. We found a letter written by him. The clan is still investigating his disappearance and hasn't announced it to the village yet. Kaito raised a hand gently. Fugaku-sama, Shisui is alive. He's currently at my house, recovering from his injuries. Fugaku's eyes widened in shock before narrowing with suspicion. Explain, he demanded. Itachi clarified. Father, Shisui was attacked by Danzo. Danzo was after his Sharingan and managed to take one of his eyes. Shisui escaped, but, fearing that the situation between the clan and the village would escalate, he attempted to end his own life. Thankfully, Kaito saved him, and we brought him to Lady Tsunade and her apprentice. They were able to heal him. Fugaku closed his eyes, his fists clenching tightly at his sides. Danzo, he muttered under his breath. Tsunade spoke firmly. Don't worry, Fugaku. Dealing with Danzo will be one of my first priorities as the 5th Hokage. He will be held accountable for his actions. That, I promise you. Fugaku exhaled slowly, attempting to steady himself. Opening his eyes, he bowed slightly. Thank you for saving Shisui, he said sincerely, gratitude evident in his tone. As Kakashi moved past where the masked man had been, their eyes met, Sharingan to Sharingan. The masked man landed a few feet away. Seems you're lucky today, Itachi Uchiha. Next time, you won't be so fortunate. His body began to be sucked into a portal that spiraled open from the eye hole of his mask. Kakashi stood protectively in front of Itachi, thoughts racing. I wasn't sure when Kaito mentioned it, but now, seeing him up close, I'm certain, it's Obito. He thought. Turning to Itachi, Kakashi asked, "Are you okay?" Itachi nodded, gratitude in his eyes. "Yes. You arrived just in time, senpai." Kakashi nodded. "Can you still fight?" "I'll manage," Itachi replied, though he was clearly exhausted. Kakashi surveyed their surroundings. "All right, we still have work to do." And that wraps up today's episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother. Kaito's journey is only getting more intense, and the future of the ninja world is changing with every step he takes. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, share the video with other Naruto fans, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Drop your theories in the comments. I love reading them. See you in the next episode.